And Linda McAvan MEP, you've been in Strasbourg this week.
Yeah.
What's it been like there? Chaos there as well as here?
Not really chaos there. I mean, on Thursday morning, I was walking into the chamber and one of my colleagues said, Dominic Raab's just resigned. And then other MEPs from other countries said, what's going on? And I said, I've got no idea what's going on. But it's very clear what's going on. The Conservative Party is falling apart. And once again, it's our country that's going to pay the price for that.
What happens next? I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, have you found a new job yet, Linda?
Well, I think my job's the least of the worries at the moment. The jobs of people around here that really matter. And thousands and thousands of people are going to see the economic price for Brexit. And what's really coming home this week, nobody anymore is saying that Brexit is a good idea for our economy. The Prime Minister said it's the best deal she can get. But that's not really good enough, is it? I mean, it's damaging Britain. Everything that's happened, it's damaged Britain. And frankly, the cause of it is division in the Tory party.
Finally, on the panel this morning, we've got Felicity Matthews from the University of Sheffield. What a week! How do you sum it up?
Chaos. Absolute chaos is the only way I can describe it. It's been a terrible week for the Conservative Party and for the Prime Minister in particular. And anyone who's got a heart couldn't help but feel awfully sorry for her, the press conferences she's run this week. She's been dealt a terrible hand. She's had to do the best she can, and the Conservative Party's falling to pieces around her.
Angela, we heard the Prime Minister do that speech, the quite impassioned speech. I mean, she invoked Jeffrey Boycott. I mean, it was that important. She had to start talking about Jeffrey Boycott. What happens with Theresa May now? Obviously, you're not a big fan of her, but do you have some sympathy for her?
I do have sympathy for her. I mean, I think she has shown resilience and courage, and I agree with Felicity entirely. Look, we have to relate to each other as human beings, and I think one can't avoid just feeling some sympathy for her because she's got a really tough job to do.
And do you vote for this? How does it work now? What are the mechanics from an MP's point of view? Are you looking at this draft agreement and thinking, I'm going to vote against this, I'm going to vote for it?
No, the thing is that the agreement that she's putting on the table pleases nobody by the looks of it. I've got to look at the real detail of it, but it does look as though it kind of puts us in a halfway house. It doesn't please Leavers, doesn't please Remainers, and in particular it threatens the Union because it threatens a break between Northern Ireland and the rest of the UK. So I'm very reluctant on that basis at the moment to commit to supporting.
But hasn't that been the problem with Labour so far? Because you know, Labour has sat back. They've maybe watched this all happen and they want another general election. Well, they've not necessarily been coming up with an alternative view, have they?
I've not been sitting back. I've been really engaged in trying to secure a Brexit that it does the least damage to the economy, which would be staying in the single market and the customs union. So, I mean, as it stands at the moment, I don't think the agreement is acceptable. It'd be very difficult to vote for it. What would transform the situation would be if we were to get an agreement that we have a final say, a people's vote referendum, with the agreement on the table, on the ballot paper, and the other option being to remain in the European Union. Let's put it back to the people. Let the people decide whether this agreement is good enough. And on that basis, I think we could get the whole thing through Parliament. But we do need that second referendum.
Linda, is the agreement good enough? You're not going to agree with it necessarily, but is it good enough? Is it going to get through?
I don't think it is good enough at all. I mean, I do have sympathy with Theresa May on one level. But on another level, she could have done this very differently. If she'd have come back when she first became leader and said, look, that nobody in the vast majority of MPs want an agreement. They want a sensible agreement with the EU. They want to hug the EU close in terms of single market and access through the customs union. And then I think she would have found a broad agreement in Parliament. Instead, what she did was try and get on board this minority in Parliament, it's extremists, and it's them who call the shots. And that's the biggest problem we've got in politics today.
That's completely right, by the way. I think Linda's spot on with that.
Well, two Labour politicians' views there. Felicity, very, very quickly, what happens next? Does Theresa May stay? Does she go? What happens? Do we stay in or out? These are all the questions we want to know the answers to.
In terms of whether Theresa May is going to stay, I think it's likely. I think the talk of these 48 letters has been exaggerated. It's not happened yet. When is it going to happen? In terms of next steps, we could have a second referendum, but given the poisonousness of political discourse in the country at the moment, I'm not actually sure it would be a good exercise in democracy, as much as it pains me to say so.
Well, thank you very much, you three. That's the view from Stocksbridge. It's very nice and cold here, plenty of Christmas shopping to be done, so we'll get off and do that. Back to you.